All right, stand by and I'll do our live intro. We'll get the audio rocking. All right, good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Live the Fuel show. So today, we're getting a new co-host out here for you guys. This guy basically comes from the Northwest U.S. in Oregon. We're going to talk more about this guy. This guy's got a crazy history, guys. We have somebody who has been around the block, so to speak, in the NFL world and just sports in general. He doesn't have just one, but he's got two podcasts online. I barely was able to launch one. This guy's rocking two of them. So he's playing at a whole different level. But he's got a crazy impressive name that I cannot even pronounce, but luckily he's made it easier for us. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Niyi Sobo.
How you doing, Scott? Great to be on, man.
Doing well, man. Doing well. So for our listeners, I wanted to kind of get the ball rolling for us to catch up because you got a crazy background. And last time you and I chatted, we were talking about firefighting and your professional sports history and what you're doing now from a psychological standpoint. And I'm trying to actually, I'm brain farting right now, but how did you and I actually get connected up? It was...
I think it was through Kristy.
Body Buddies podcast. Boom. Yep. There we go. See, Kristy Joe. There we go. Yep. So shout out to Kristy Joe. We love you.
Yeah, there we go.
So for our listeners, you've been doing a lot of stuff, man. And I know your core brand for our listeners, guys, it's imnotyou.com. That is you. If you want to know anything about you, man, you go to that site, right, let alone the podcast and everything else. I'm going to kick this off right away. Why did you go with I'm Not You? we didn't get a chance to really talk about that.
I know. I enjoy telling how this came about because when I first came up with the idea for the name, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but I knew that it had to be that, but I also knew that a lot of people were going to not like it or not understand it, right? And so I was literally just looking for one person who could validate it for me. And I remember I called up my guy Chance. I was a firefighter for 3 years, and I remember I was at work, and I called Chance, one of the athletes that I originally started working with just in training. I met him when I was in high school, but now he's grown. And I told him the name, and he loved it. I was like, cool, all I needed is one. But basically, man, I grew up. I was the third out of four boys, so I had, I guess what you call middle child syndrome, right? And
same here.
So my dad came here from Nigeria when he was 18, soccer family, and I always like to do things a little different, right? And that worked out for me a lot, and sometimes it didn't, and it caused my dad a lot of problems. But I started playing football when I was in 7th grade, and I loved it. And I fell in love with it. My dad put me in a private school. All my brothers went to a different high school. And I just fell in love with football. And I went to Oregon State for 3 seasons where I was there as a walk-on, and then transferred to Portland State where I got a scholarship and then ultimately made it to the NFL for a couple of years after that, right? And so after I was in the NFL and things didn't work out quite as I had planned them out, but it was an awesome experience. I spent some time wandering around trying to figure out what to do next. And ultimately became a firefighter while I was simultaneously building my brand around helping athletes. But at the time, I was just focused on, the physical portion of it. And so I decided that I wanted to dive in all the way to the mindset and show athletes the mindset that they needed in order to dominate, like really focus on the mental conditioning aspect of it. And I was trying to figure out what was I going to name it, because I didn't want to go with the old name that I had for my old business. I wanted to totally rebrand it. And I remember I was jogging and I was listening to my favorite, one of my favorite rap groups, Clips. And they had this song called I'm Not You, right? Clips are from Virginia. And what he was talking about in the song was basically, he was talking about how he really lives this lifestyle while most others just talk about it. Like they like to talk about, this type of gangster lifestyle that they might be living, whereas these guys actually really have been through that. And when he said it, the way he was describing, I was like, wow, that's the exact mindset that I've had at every stage of my development, to when I was successful, I had the mindset of I'm not you, meaning if you quit, I'm not going to quit. So anyone starting a business, some crazy stat, 90% of businesses fail within the first 5 years.
You're right.
If you go into it with that sort of mindset, you will either not do it or you'll inevitably fail.
Yeah.
However, those who actually do succeed, they have the I'm not you mindset. They're willing to do what most people won't do. They're willing to go through the fire. They're willing to deal with that doubt and uncertainty, to be what I call the lion in the jungle and deal with the uncertainty that comes with being an entrepreneur. They don't opt for the safe job, right? And so I'm not you. That mentality is what I realized these athletes must have if they're going to succeed. It's 2017. You cannot possibly stand out if you're just doing the same thing that everyone else is doing.
Yes.
And you have to think differently. Your mindset must be different. And that's not enough to just say that. Someone must show them specifically what this looks like. What does the process look like? How much you think? How do you change what you think? How do you change your environment? What sort of systems, habits, and mindsets must you install, must you have set up in the infrastructure of your career if you want to actually really succeed, like get the results? Not post pictures on Instagram acting like you're getting results, like actually really get the results, right? And I've been able to get some cool results in my life. I was never the biggest, fastest, strongest, made it to the NFL as a rookie free agent and then ended up starting in my rookie year there. Became a firefighter. You and I know that's a competitive job. It's a hard thing to get.
Oh,
and
yeah. You got to compete to get in, man.
Right. It's tough. And I would say it was harder for me going through that, my academy. That was the hardest experience I've ever been through. No training camp was harder than that, man. From a physical, mental standpoint, you're dealing with like legitimate, real life fears, like things you actually really should be scared of. And so I wanted to sort of identify what was it that made me successful in those times. And then when I wasn't successful, because I've had a lot of those times too, it was like the antithesis of the I'm not you mindset. It was like I was just like everyone else. I was scared, fearful, unsure, overthinking, etc. So that's where the name
that
come
crap
from
too, right?
Exactly.
It's like you got to embrace it and own it because that's just a part of life. Let's be
Right.
real. I mean, you were a pro athlete. You were a firefighter. I was a firefighter. It's like that is an elite level role or position.
Right.
But people need to be reminded that guess what? We're all still human beings, man. Everybody's still fearful. Everybody is still going up against the same walls you're going up against with the mindset piece you're talking about. It's the same for everybody. The only difference is the people who have reached those elite levels have embraced it, owned it, and have worked through it.
Exactly. Work through it. And then they use it. Yeah. And then they use it to their advantage. Right. And the same things that hold people back are the ones that drive these other people. Cause you could use it like,
it's fuel for the fire.
Exactly. So that's where the name came from, man. I'm really excited about it. It is like, I'm all in. I quit my job last year as a firefighter to do what I'm doing now full time. It's a ton of fun. It's a lot of challenges. Like, man, I feel like at every stage of development as an entrepreneur, there's like more things I find out I don't know. Just continuously getting exposed, but it's kind of like going to the gym. If you're not getting exposed in the gym to some degree, that means you're not really pushing yourself. So you should have those reps where you can't lift it. You should get injured a couple of times. Hopefully you don't do that a bunch, but you're going to get hurt. You're going to fail. You're going to maybe throw up a few times. So that's sort of what I've been doing, man, going through the fire, but it's a ton of fun.
Well, and that's part of the piece of like really getting to that point of peak performance, right? Is that you're supposed to be screwing up. You're supposed to be having mistakes because that's how you get your brain trained to a whole new peak level. Is that if you're constantly just kind of limping through life, limping through your career, limping through your business, you're not willing to take those risks and fail, you're not going to break through to that upper echelon of performance, guys. Like the most powerful ways we learn is when we fuck up. Okay. Exactly. It's okay to say it. All right, dude.
Right.
Oh, darn. I messed up. I screwed up. However you want to call it. That's when it's like, you got to like stop it for a second. It's like, oh man, I screwed up. That means I just learned something powerful. What am I going to do with that? And most people can't flip the switch into that mode right away. We're all guilty of it. I mean, you probably immediately didn't get to that point where like, oh man, I screwed up. You probably still had some emotion coming out of that. You probably pissed off yourself, pissed off your team, whatever. But like, how do you help somebody understand how to get to that point where they flip that switch faster and faster throughout life? Because what I'm talking about there is like, hey man, get off the negative and realize you just experienced something powerful. And what are you going to learn from that?
Right. That's a great question, man. I'm so glad you said it. You worded it like you did, which is flip the switch faster and faster, because you're always going to need to flip the switch. I had to flip the switch just yesterday. I had a sales call just yesterday that did not go the way that I wanted. And I was telling my wife, I had like emotions that were like, I felt like really crappy about myself. And so here's what I would say. When I'm helping my clients deal with this, right? Like the breakthrough will happen first when you understand how our brains are wired. So I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail on this, but I'll just give you a couple books right off top. There's a great book called Performing Under Pressure, and another one by Charlie Munger, the multi-billionaire who's the best friend and advisor to Warren Buffett. And he talks about the cognitive biases. So our brains are wired in such a way that we're basically wired to survive. So a lot of these feelings that you and I have, these fears, every human being in the world has them, right? And when you start understanding what these are and why they are there, right? They're there for a specific reason. They served us 10,000 years ago, but they don't serve us anymore now. So understanding that first, that takes a lot of the edge off. So for example, last night when I have that emotion, it's perfectly understandable. There's nothing wrong with it. Our emotions lie to us a lot of times, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's why we have that's why we have a rational mind.
It's funny you bring that up real quick to help fuel what you're talking about, because I've told you guys before about that organization here that I bring on regularly, the sports psychologists. They're called Mind of the Athlete. They talk about that, how chemically and hormonally, our brain's job is to protect us and save us and keep us safe. So it's okay. It's a natural reaction to immediately go into safe mode and protect yourself. And those walls start coming up. So part of what you're talking about here is that's what we're talking about here, guys. You got to embrace that shit, because that's the stuff that is going to, like, number one, give you a wake up call. Like, hey, I'm now on full alert. But number two, you got to get past that. Okay. Right. Hey, my brain's trying to protect me. I got to get past that. Because that's phase one. Phase two is how fast can I break through that and get back to making things happen? So that's what I'm hearing from you too.
Absolutely. It's like if you think about it, our brains, we've always heard this. Our brains are the most complex tool that we have. So powerful. We don't get a manual for it. It's like someone using their stove for the first time, turning it to one setting, and then getting mad because their food is getting burnt every time. It's like, you need to understand the hardware, right? Like, play with the settings a little bit, dial back. It doesn't have to happen like that. So understanding our brains are wired first is a major breakthrough. It's like, oh, everyone feels like this. Like, literally everyone feels like this. The reason why, we're so embarrassed, or, when I take my kids out in public and my son might be crying at the grocery store and I get embarrassed, right? We all can get embarrassed or feel awkward in situations like that. That's a mechanism in our brain designed to keep us safe, because if we don't feel accepted by those that are peers, then 10,000 years ago, it actually meant death. So anyway, that's just an example. So from there, though, then you have to say, okay, what is going to be your philosophy on success and failure? What does success mean to you? What is failure? How do you know when you failed? How do you know when you succeed? Because what I found early in my entrepreneurial career, and I can guarantee you probably can relate to this, when you get like, really, I would get really nervous to try things because I didn't want it to not work out. But how silly is that when you think about it consciously? Are any of us so naive, or I should say arrogant, to believe that we're just going to naturally start a business and just succeed on the first project, the first course, no, you have to do it. And then you get the feedback. We're like a scientist, right? And so I changed my definition of what failure meant. Before it, for me, it was, if I tried something and it didn't work out, then that meant it was a failure. And that felt like a failure. Right. But now I say, okay, if I try something and it didn't work out, I might get the emotions, but rationally I understand this is actually a win if I use the feedback and I make corrections, right? Yeah. And knowing that, like, I'm always going to get that feedback. And then, of course, like success, a lot of people have this warped idea of success that the only way for you to feel successful is if you actually achieve the goal. How many goals have you and I set that we have not achieved? That's not the point. Like,
yeah. If anything, that's the power of journaling. You got to write that stuff down so you can actually go back and realize, like, oh, wow, dude, like, yeah, I didn't get that one, but that fail, boom, led to that success. Exactly. And then you're back to failing again until the next success.
Exactly. And then we understand, any athlete, you're an athlete. Anyone who's ever competed at a high level understands that the rush that you get when you win is very short-lived. Like, there's certain types of personalities, and I know you're built like this as well. We like to achieve, we would like to succeed. We'll never really feel like we're good enough all the way. Like,
No.
that's kind of just like a reality. So
We
you kind
are.
of just,
It's like what's the term? You're your own you're your own worst critic or
right,
self-critic, whatever you want to
right.
call that. Yeah.
And that's a gift and a curse. You know, a guy like Kobe, a guy like Jordan, they're never satisfied, and it's their gift and their curse.
Oh
So
man,
you kind of have to
imagine if you
live
can
with that as
climb
well.
inside of their head, man. Imagine if you can climb inside their head and like right when they screw up, like I want to hear what's going on inside in their synapses, like what's going on there. Cause it's probably like, he's probably like swearing at himself or something. I don't know. Like, or
Right.
they're at that elite level that it's only a split second, right? Like, hey, I jacked that up, just like we're talking about here, but they're at that elite level, meaning that they're already getting past that while we're still like the average person is still trying to like get to the point of even considering getting past that.
Exactly. And so it's just a like you said, a switch that you have to flip multiple times over and over. I have my definitions of success and failure plastered everywhere. I remind myself of it because if I'm not careful, then I'll feel like something's a failure. And then I've associated anytime I tried something to feeling like a failure. So what's going to happen next time I want to try something? I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't try something, you're never going to get the result. And everyone here listening knows that. But again, it's something that you have to use the power of your rational mind in order to override those sort of natural tripwires that you know, prevent us from moving forward.
Well, and you and I definitely connect on the fitness level because we talk about the terminology of like, oh, you got to put in the reps. And I use this a lot. And I've realized now that I go back and listen to my later shows now, and I'm like, oh, I'm starting to use that more. And I realize it's okay. And maybe if that becomes a consistent theme of the show, I have no idea. But literally putting in the reps doesn't just apply to obviously the physical connotation of like, oh, I'm at the gym and I'm putting in the reps. Okay, I'm doing a 3x15, 3 sets of 15, whatever. We're talking also, this relates totally back to the mental game. And what are we doing psychologically day in and day out? And what are we doing with the self-help and the self-development? Or are we working with coaches or mentors? And this goes up to the professional level, not just the personal psychological development, but your professional development. We can attack this in so many different domains of our life. But long story short, everything I'm hearing from you just reinforces that. Are you putting in the reps? Are you realizing that it's not going to happen with the first attempt or the second attempt? You're going to fail. That's a rep. And until you get good at that movement or that thought or that next, or like public speaking, for example. Man, let's just jump right into that. Where are you at with public speaking, right? Let's think about back when you first started, because literally now that you're in this level, I'm sorry, anybody who becomes an entrepreneur, whether you like it or not, guys, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you better start embracing the public, networking, learning how to talk to other people, and then eventually when you want to get elite, you get comfortable on stage. So where are you at with that?
Man, it's funny. I always tell this story. When I was young, I was the shy one. My mom said I would go to the corner when all my brothers were dancing to Michael Jackson. I would be dancing in the corner. I was labeled as shy all the way through, like up until, just recently, people knew me as shy. And the funny thing about it is shyness is like a fluid trait. It's learned, right? At least that's what I believe. I believe we are wired a certain ways. We can be more introvert, et cetera. And I am more of an introvert, but I did not enjoy the idea of speaking in public. What changed for me though is when I had something that I actually felt really, really strongly about, that I was passionate about, because I don't think anyone likes speaking about things they're not passionate about. And so when anyone finds like a real purpose behind what it is that they're doing, and it's so strong, it will override whatever, aversion you have to speaking. Or, I just went to Philadelphia a few weeks ago and was speaking to a boardroom full of executives and high-level leaders in this company out there. And it was so crazy because like before I was so nervous. I'm always pretty nervous before I speak. But always the thing that makes me calm down is when I put myself in the shoes of who it is that's listening to me, and realizing that I'm only really talking to one person, if you will. Like, obviously I'm talking to a group, but if I can like focus on those people that I'm talking to, it kind of like takes away a lot of my anxiety and my fear, as opposed to me focusing on what they're thinking about me and things like that. So that's where, and the podcasting has helped a ton with that as well. Like you said, getting in the reps and the sets. Yep. I mean, I remember I used to be like, overthink what I was going to talk about. Now I barely use a script. I'm just going off the top and I'm feeling a lot more comfortable. So it's one of those things, man, just like anything. If you can't do push-ups, you're not wired to be weak. You just haven't done any push-ups. Get your ass in the gym, start off with 2 or 3, keep doing them and it will get better. So I'm just always growing in that area, but I'm still not yet to the point where I get up and it's like, I usually take a while to get going. You know what I mean? And so yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
Well, it's funny you bring up the podcasting real quick. I'm going to flip over to sharing screens here for our YouTube watchers since we got video going at the same time. And again, reminder to our listeners, again, his course site, I'll show it to you real quick here, is imnotyou.com. There he is. There's the man. And then there's 2 podcasts. One, the newer one, is Get Your Mind Right, Motivation Podcast, Peak Performance, Sports Psychology, Hip Hop. I'll have to ask you more about the hip hop piece. And then the other one is Sports Motivation Podcast by I'm Not You. So there's 2 different shows out there for people. So that's something powerful for you, man, because you literally get to put in the reps on 2 different platforms. And I'm sure there's similarities and there's some cross-pollination on there. And we're going to dig into that for a second here, but I wanted to kind of show you something really funny. Is literally an hour ago, this weekend, I'm actually doing a public speaking event. I'm actually one of the speakers at a new charitable type of event. I went to a podcasting event south of Philadelphia last year, my first ever one. It was called the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference, or MapCon. And the founder of that is really starting to tie purpose and business to what he does, a charity giving back. So he's launching a new event this year called DreamCon. And anyway, I asked him, like, dude, I submitted my speaker thing for him because he wanted me to come speak. I don't remember what the heck I sent him, because I just talk about whatever that I'm confident with. Like you just said, you're successful with. So I'm like, hey man, could you let me know what I sent you? And again, back to your point, if you want to get into speaking, speak of what you know. So my title of my talk is Balancing Health, Business, and Lifestyle, right? That's my podcast. But I dig into why I explain it that way. And I basically said, listen, this is taken from my studies in psychology. I target the values of the average person's struggle with balancing the different domains of life, everything that I do on the podcast, but also what I've done in the CrossFit world, the business world, my firefighting, like everything. So I'm not going to get back, dive deeper into that. But my point is, it just reinforces what you're talking about. If somebody's new to speaking, you don't have to get a podcast show going. I recommend it because it's fun. But what you just reinforced is talk about something you're passionate about. Like, I do not plan on going there this weekend with index cards or like a cue system. I'm going to step up in a badass suit and get on stage, and I'm going to rock the mic with people in the audience and teach them what I care about, which is exactly what I put in that email. And the funny thing was, I knew that it was something along those lines, but I didn't care because I just know the subject.
Right. Exactly.
It's like you launching your shows, right? Did you launch both these shows before you got into more public speaking, or was this kind of like in the midst of it? Like, how did that whole happen?
It actually started. So like I was doing some camps and more like workshops type things before I did the podcast.
Okay.
As well as doing coaching. I had done a few public speaking events, but I wasn't marketing myself as necessarily a public speaker, quote unquote. I still don't even like the idea of that. I consider myself more of a coach or a teacher, actually, as opposed to like a speaker. But yeah, the speaking sort of came along as I never wanted to be a speaker, but I have a strong purpose behind what I'm doing. And so teaching is an avenue. I didn't set out to be a podcaster either. Podcasting is just a method, a vehicle by which to share my message. So that could be, writing a book, speaking, but whatever it is that your message is, because that's the most important thing, is understanding the message. Once you get that dialed in, then just figure out what channel is best for you. Maybe public speaking is not the best for you, but I guarantee you could write a book. And I guarantee you learning how to speak and articulate your message is going to benefit you greatly in whatever it is that you're doing. Because I believe that the power of influence and the ability to influence is not something that, only entrepreneurs should have. Everyone should have it. And it's something that can be learned.
Well, and it's like right here, your podcast, I had to bring these up on the video for you because I've got some customer reviews up. And I don't even know do you remember when you even got some of these reviews done?
No, I don't, man. I really don't.
And a lot of podcasters don't actually look at it. So I thought it was pretty cool, man, because what you're talking about here, if you didn't get into podcasting, you wouldn't have, and I'm just going to pick out 2 of them, but one of them here is, and this is from, I guess his nickname is the Animal, but like the most comprehensive mastermind in the podcast world. Explains complex theories and formulas of success that are easily understandable. Nee has helped me accomplish goals in 6 months that I've never been able to do in years. And he gives all his excuses of self-expansion freely that is enjoyable. So that's just one of your reviews, and that one's from the Get Your Mind Right. So clearly, he's definitely a listener of your podcast, but also sounds like you must have worked with him one-on-one.
No, I haven't. I don't know who the Danimal is. No.
There you go. Well, that was a pretty powerful. There you go. So you never know who's going to comment on your reviews. So that's actually pretty cool. And then the other one from your sports motivation podcast, one of them here is from a James Curti. Are you familiar with that one?
Yep.
Yeah. So here he writes, Nee-yee understands what it takes for athletes to be successful. He gets it. Nee-yee made it to the highest level in his sport. Even better, he knows how to teach young athletes and show them how to achieve their goals. If you're a young athlete, this podcast is a must listen. So I love that because he's even hinting like, hey man, this guy's here not just for his current age group, but giving back to the millennial generation. Obviously that's one of my target audiences for Live the Fuel as well. So I just want to give you kudos, man, because that's just like you don't need a ton of reviews. I tell people all the time, I don't have a ton of reviews, but if the reviews you get are 5-star like that, and people are that excited and love saying positive words like that, like those aren't made up. That's somebody who, especially the first one I read, you could tell that guy is like legitimately likes you. Mm-hmm. That was a very detailed review. So
appreciate that, man.
But I love to be able to show some transparency behind everything that people are doing here because everything you just said, you're getting into public speaking. You've had 2 podcasts, and I forget what were the totals, man. You put out a lot of freaking episodes.
Yeah, you got over 150 on the sports motivation, and
you got 212. Yeah. 212 on. I'm approaching like 76, so I'm playing catch up. And your other show, you're already up to 58 already. So, and obviously, what spawned you to get your mind right? Because clearly that didn't come right away. That came further, right. And you kind of hinted at mindset and motivation and inspiration. Clearly. Was this a theme that started coming out of the other podcasts? And you just say, you know what, I need to start getting this message clear? Where'd that come from?
Man, at the time I was doing 2 podcasts a week on the sports motivation podcast. I was getting a ton of great feedback on it. I was having a lot of fun recording it. But I just felt like I wanted to give more. Like I just wanted to produce more. I really enjoy producing content. It's something that comes easy for me. So, they say like double down on the things you're good at. I feel like I'm good at it. So I was like, man, let me do more. So I decided to do another episode. I remember I was running and I got the idea of just doing some motivational type of things over hip hop beats because I love hip hop and I like listening to that type of thing when I run. So I'm like, if I'm running, you can listen to hip hop instrumentals, but what if you added my voice over it and I'm sort of getting some edgy themes and going in hard. And so I just started playing around with it. I did a few, and then we started releasing those every Monday on the Sports Motivation Podcast, and people just really liked it. And I was getting several emails from people just saying, I would love it if I can hear these back to back to back so I can listen to them at the gym. Because, when you play on a podcast, it'll play that. It's like 5 minutes, but then it'll go into my longer episodes and things.
You can jump right from episode to episode. Right. That's interesting.
Right. And I'm someone who likes to work out to music. I don't necessarily like listening to podcasts while I work out.
It's sometimes too mental.
right, exactly. I'm like trying to, bench press and like learn things at the same time. It's kind of difficult. So I put out this one episode where I put out all of my Get Your Mind Right podcast episodes. I think it was like episode 100, and I just looped them back to back to back. So it was like a 3-hour, long episode. And that's still to this day, the most downloaded episode that I have. And so then I was like, dude, I got to create a whole another podcast out of this and create 2 a week. So now I just morphed the Get Your Mind Right into the Get Your Mind Right podcast, motivation podcast. And now there's 2 episodes a week. I have a ton of fun doing it. Now I'm like using little interview clips and quotes from, famous athletes and entrepreneurs, rappers, etc. And those are sort of the theme behind it. So it's something that I actually, of all the work that I do, I actually have the most fun recording those. I really love hip hop. I feel like I don't have the talent to be a rapper, but that would be something that I would be in my next life if I could. So it's like the next best thing that I have to getting in the studio.
Well, and you don't need the talent per se. Like, to be fair, you actually are exercising a different kind of talent. You're taking your passion for hip hop, something that you can probably easily speak to as well, and are using it as a vehicle for your messaging. And I think that's actually very damn creative, because I don't think I've come across a lot of other podcasts that are doing it that way. Now that because I've listened to a couple of your shows and I'm like, okay, each podcast is definitely different. But now that I understand the backstory behind it, dude, it makes total sense. Like it's a vehicle for messaging. It's kind of like when I went back to school a few years ago for a BS in marketing and psychology, I did on nights and weekends. And I found like, I think it was called iMusic. It was a company that was making, and I don't want to call it subliminal messaging, but literally they redubbed music. It was designed in a classical platform, not hip hop, but they designed in certain, I don't know, I'll call it subliminal undertones that they figured out. There's like science behind this that stimulates your brain different ways. So they had one album that was targeted towards fitness performance. They had another album that was targeted towards just deep thought, and they had another one that's just to help promote like better studying habits. So I bought them. I bought the whole set, really primarily just to be able to study and research better, because I was working in my career and trying to bang out at an accelerated pace a degree as well. So it was like I was kind of overwhelmed, and I was looking ways to hack it. And stuff worked, man. So granted, there was no words at all.
Right.
So I get what you're doing, because, hey, man, if you love hip hop and you're working it anyway, and you can put the messaging out there in a way that's not making people think too deep, but it's constantly flowing, your brain will grab it.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the music engages that emotion, man. And just like you said, man, like we all have things that we're naturally drawn to or that we like. It makes so much sense. Like, why don't you just sort of, fandangle, whatever it is your passions are, try to align them as much as possible. It's not always like super easy, but you can do it. And when you do it, it's like you find like something clicks where it's like you could just do it all day. Like you could just like, and it's like, again, it's not always fun. There's a lot of aspects of being an entrepreneur, or even whatever it is that you're drawn to that are going to be cumbersome or not always fun, but you can always find a way to like align those things that you're passionate about. It's a lot of fun, man.
Well, that's the whole point, right? Why are we doing all this? Like you just said, the word fun. Like if you don't enjoy what you're doing, find a way to make it fun again. Doesn't mean you have to completely flip your lid and say, oh, I'm not going to be an athlete anymore or an entrepreneur anymore. You just got to find a way to make that athletic experience or that entrepreneurial experience or that project you're working on, find a way to make it fun.
Right.
Everybody immediately, like we talk about this pretty much this whole episode. It's like everybody's always going to the negative mindset. Like, guys, flip that switch. Okay. You have a choice. You can live in a negative mindset or you can live in a positive mindset. And from everything that you're talking about here is if you flip the switch and get into that positive, constructive mindset that you're going to put a positive result out of that, you're probably going to move the ball a little bit further along the path. That's how I'm looking at it. So,
right.
And obviously you did that at the elite athletic level. You did it at the firefighting level. And now you're, and how long you been doing the entrepreneurial thing now, man? It's been
I'm not using almost 2 years old. Before that I was dabbling, doing on the side, doing training and things, but I've been all the way in the game for about a couple of years now.
But you see, that's something to clarify too. I've not always been a dedicated independent entrepreneur, right? We all started in dabbling on things on the side. So I love clarifying that, because whether we're talking about people's health and fitness or their business or their lifestyle, this literally popped up today. I was working. I didn't want to work from home today. So I went out to a Whole Foods and they had it's a newer location, new cafe. The sun was shining. I'm like, I'm going to take my laptop outside, sit outside in the sun, and then pop in and out. And I'm like, I got to go get something, because I was there pretty much all day. And I ended up running this nice couple in the healthy supplement aisle. And I ended up talking to these people for like 45 minutes. They had such a great story. They were both struggling with weight loss and those other things. And that's the biggest thing that I basically left them with. I was like, listen, they're welcome to follow up with me if they wanted to for some coaching. But I said, the biggest thing I want you to take away today is don't overwhelm yourself with this wall of supplements. Don't overwhelm yourself with all these different diets and lifestyles. In the beginning, it's just a matter of saying, you know what? Clarify your why you're doing all of this. And then just start taking small steps. Everybody wants to do the crash diet or the crash. I got to jump. He said earlier, jump right into a successful business. That's how you fail. You got to give yourself permission to take time and take the steps to put the effort in and start making the mistakes and learning from that. I told him, like, listen, if you go out and buy like 8 of these supplements right now, how do you know which one is actually impacting your health in a positive way? You gotta cycle this stuff in lightly and be careful about trying all this stuff. So I was just from a healthy perspective, we were talking about that, but it totally aligns with what you discussed from an entrepreneurial pursuit perspective, because in the past 2 years, you've already said you've learned a lot. You're still learning a lot. I'm still learning a lot, but people need to give themselves permission to sometimes slow down a little bit and give themselves the time to put in these reps and learn from the process.
Right. And that just comes again with redefining your definition of success. Like if you have this idea, even with weight loss, that, okay, all of a sudden you're going to get this body and then you will be deemed a success. It's like, no, I've never been a world-class bodybuilder, but I got to imagine a bodybuilder never looks at himself in the mirror and says, yeah, I'm perfect. Like you're always going to be tweaking. Yeah. Like you're always going to be tweaking, modifying, improving. Now you can be at a state where you really, are satisfied with to a degree. But if you can rig your mind, like, and set up your beliefs and your mindset in such a way that says, I get to feel successful as long as I'm moving toward my vision, as long as I know I'm clear about what it is and I'm taking some sort of steps each day, then you make a lot more progress. You actually move faster along than a lot of other people. You get your results quicker and you have a whole lot more fun doing it. And life just becomes enjoyable. Then you start to actually become a leader, because not many people think that way. Most people think like how you're talking about. They get overwhelmed with all these things and you try to get this, get rich quick or lose weight quick or lose 20 pounds. It's like, nah, dude, like the way my mentor always told me, it's like building a sculpture. Your life is like a big ass rock. Choose the rock and then chip away at that sculpture every day. And hopefully after a certain amount of years, you'll have something worth looking at, you know what I mean? And then people will remember this sculpture. But it takes time, and it takes time. Like it's Charlie Munger, that book again, I'll reiterate. He said, step by step, you get ahead, but not necessarily in fast spurts. But he says it's by building that discipline that you prepare for those fast spurts. Many people can't even handle the success that they're asking for, right? Like, for example, many people's body, if you're going to lose a ton of weight, your body can't even handle it. It needs to get acclimated to all these changes. Same thing with wealth.
Thank you for clarifying that. Acclimation. Your body needs time to adapt to every phase it's going through.
Right. And it's not just your body, it's everything, your wealth. A lot of people want a lot of wealth, but if you ask them, what are your daily habits? You wouldn't even know what to do with it. You have no idea how to allocate those monies in the right direction. You have no idea how to budget.
Oh, yeah. Look at the statistics on the Lotto Winners.
Exactly.
It's something crazy, like 85 to 90% of people who win lotteries, the money's gone in like a year. Because they have no clue what to do with it. They don't have any investment background, because it's usually people, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, that have come from very little to nothing. And now they have supposedly what they think is the world and everything, because they're still in that money mindset only. And like you just said, they have no structure, no architecture, no foundation to build, to expand with those new resources. And they just flush it right down the toilet.
Exactly. And that can happen to any of us. Like even we want better relationships. We want a better job. Let's say you get the job. You don't even know what you're doing in your current job, so maximize what you're doing right now. Fill up that current space. It's like the laws of evolution. There's a great book called Science of Getting Rich. It was written in like 1908 or something like that.
I've read it. Yes.
Yeah. And he talks about like the nature responds to those things that grow. So like, if you want to achieve something, then become the type of person who deserves to achieve it. You'll get it. Like nature, if you evolve, you will move on. If you don't, you will die. So it's like evolve or die, like become what it is that you say you want. So even with money, if someone wants to make a ton of money, then do with your money right now as a multimillionaire, somebody who's highly successful, someone who has a ton of money, do as they will do. And you will see the results eventually. Time will, how long it takes will depend, but you will get it eventually.
Well, I just quickly switched the video over to your core website again, just for our video watchers. Because again, for our listeners, guys, I'mNotYou.com. All this stuff will be listed in his show notes from the episode on the website for LiveTheFuel.com for his episode. But this is everything he's talking about. He's got it listed right here on one of his coaching pages. Is right here. I love this piece right here. The one header. It's very simple. A coach, and most importantly, a plan. Okay. A coach is only as good as the plan and the system that you're helping put in place for that athlete. So I love the fact that you actually call this out in big, bold letters on your page here, because this is what you're talking about. So, and that plan also needs to be flexible and adaptable, right? Like you talked about this earlier, I think in the episode too, about how you also need to be ready to make mistakes and then modify and learn from that and change from that. Like you can't be so strict and regimented, because that's what a lot of people think. A lot of people think that elite athletes had the most perfect, dialed in, expert level game plan. Now, is that correct? Is it not? I mean, you've been an elite athlete, man. Like,
Right.
how do you weigh in on that type of evaluation?
That's a great question, man. I think it was Napoleon, or it was some really great war general, and they said this quote. I'm gonna butcher it, but this was the idea of it: that they spend so much time planning, and that literally 100% of the time the plans never go as they plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the value of planning is you can't replace it, because when you sit down to plan, like for example, so I have very specific systems for how I plan my week, how I plan my life, but down to the year, quarter, month, week, day, etc. But my weekly planning process, almost never do I follow exactly how I planned it. But that's not the point. But the hour that I spend on Sunday creating the plan, what that does is that prepares you in so many more ways. And I don't even know the exact science behind it or what's going on in the brain, but there's a certain feeling that you have when you know that you're prepared.
Sure.
And there's a certain way to plan. Like, for example, with athletes, we plan for every single contingency. As a football team, a great football team, there's a great book called The Score Takes Care of Itself by Bill Walsh. He talks about every single potential reality during a game, whether it's 4th and 1, you're down by 2 touchdowns, you know, 1st and 15, on the other person's 40-yard line. We have plays for every single one of those scenarios. So having a plan is not saying we're going to go in there and do this play no matter what. However, there is elements of that as well. We have the first 10 plays are always scripted out. We know exactly what plays we're going to run the first 10 plays. Like,
that's
here's
crazy.
What we're going to do, boom, boom, boom. And that's all prepared for. Now, can things happen? Of course, but that's why you're prepared. So the name of the game is preparation. And the reality is that none of us are as prepared as we need to be. Charlie Munger, again, a great quote he said, I've prepared for the worst every day of my life, and I'm happier because of it. Every day, like, you prepare for the things that you know are going to come. John Wooden, again, he talked about preparing for a rainy day. One of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. We have to be prepared, man. So that means, parents, are you anticipating the certain stages that your kids are going to go through? Maybe your daughter's 8 right now. She's having a blast. But what happens when she turns 14? Are you laying the groundwork right now for when she enters middle school? By the way, I have a 14-year-old, so that's why I'm able to speak on that. Are you prepared for what's going to happen when your kids go to college? Entrepreneurs, are you prepared for what's going to happen after you have that initial burst of, like, everyone's loving you? You have a great first year, but then you have that sophomore slump. You got to keep going. You have to anticipate all those type of things. And you'll never run out of things to anticipate. And that doesn't mean you should be worried and, like, stressed out all the time. Absolutely not. When you plan, you should come from a place of a positive energy, a place of certainty, a place of calm, a place of poise, but be willing to explore all those potential scenarios that can happen. And so, yeah, the answer to your question is no. You will never really follow the plan. I've had well laid out plans for everything, and I can guarantee you 75% of them won't go out as I planned it. However, I do consistently plan, and I'm always monitoring my results. And so, just like Napoleon Hill said, it doesn't even matter if your plan's a horrible one. A bad plan is way better than no plan at all, because if you have a bad plan, scratch it up, create a new one. Right. But if you don't have any plan, good luck.
And you have something to go back to and fall back to and say, okay, well, that plan didn't work, but now I know that one that I wrote down doesn't work.
Exactly.
Okay? You have You have a starting point. It's interesting because everything you just gave us it does have a balance, but also it does contradict itself, but also benefit from itself. Because again, you are talking about the power of game plans and executing on game plans to see if they're going to work. But then there's also that underlying message of what you were talking about, where it's like, also, guys, there's that balance of be careful not to over plan. So it's interesting because you're talking about a lot of planning, but you're also kind of hinting at there was also a point of over planning, or really just over committing to the plan. Right. So I just want to clarify that for some of the listeners too, because people are also guilty of this common terminology of paralysis by analysis, right? You can create all these plans, then you're going to sit there and just analyze the crap out of them, trying to find the perfect one. Which, again, going back to your point here, is like, okay, no, guys, keep planning, keep having a plan for everything, but you got to take action on at least one of them. Okay. Don't sit there and just plan and never do anything. Okay. Because we talked about earlier in the episode, you got to make mistakes. You got to give it a shot and see if it's going to work.
Exactly. And I'll use a Jeff Bezos quote, his book, The Everything Store. But Jeff Bezos said this, and the owner of Amazon, about to be like $1 trillion company. He said, be flexible on the outcome, but or rigid on the outcome, flexible on your strategy or your approach, right? And the way I like to say it is, be married to your outcome, but be willing to divorce your strategy or your plan. Yes. So it's not about the plan, it's about the outcome. So if you know where you're going, it's like when you hop in the car and I'm saying I'm gonna meet you, Scott, at that Whole Foods, right? And you give me the address. That's the outcome for me to end up there at that location, hanging out with you, chilling, etc. Right? The plan is maybe to hop on highway I-5 and do this, take a right here. But let's say I get off track. What will Siri do? Siri won't get mad and say, oh no, we're never going to get there. She just reroutes you, create a different plan. And then hopefully if you follow that plan, and there might be some bumps along the way, you might have to stop by and get some gas. You might make the wrong turn. But if you're rigid on the outcome, you're going to get there, and you're flexible in your approach, you'll get there eventually. And if you're smart, you'll follow what Siri gave you. You'll trust her. And that goes along with reading and learning and getting yourself a coach. Listen to Scott because he knows what he's talking about, right? Like if you try to do your own thing, no wonder you're frustrated all the time. Yeah. If those people at the grocery store,
why do you bother even hiring a coach?
Right, exactly. And it's funny because we all like overestimate our own. And I do this all the time. It's something that I have to check every single day. It's like we kind of like think we're gonna intuitively like figure it out. Like no, a lot of this shit is not intuitive, man. Being an entrepreneur is not that intuitive. Like losing weight is not that intuitive. You need to have knowledge. Like you need to know what foods you could feel like you're eating healthy. It was just funny. I don't know if you guys have Panera out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, go to Panera. It's a cool spot. I like going there with my kids and getting a little bagel and stuff. But
I like the Wi-Fi if I want to bang out a quick work meeting and some of them have the laptops. Yeah.
But it's like it looks so nice, and I'm not knocking Panera at all, but it's so nice, and you get this vibe that it's healthy, right? But it's not necessarily that healthy. There are a lot of things you can get on there that are not going to help you lose weight, but you'll have this idea that, oh, I'm eating, organic oatmeal. It's still oatmeal. It's still carbs. I'm not saying oatmeal is bad, right?
It's grain. And to clarify, it's grain-based carbs, not vegetable-based carbs. It's a whole, again, knowledge, right? There's two different families. Right. So, because people that I know are like, oh yeah, Scott's Mr. No carb guide. I'm like, I eat a crap load of carbs.
Yeah.
Let's clarify what kind of carbs we're talking about here,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So, you're not eating, white bread. So,
nah.
But that's not intuitive. We won't know that. Like if it's intuitive, then it's like that's like us popping open a can of Pringles and saying we feel like we should eat more. Of course, we're gonna feel like it, but we're lying to ourselves. So having that knowledge is critical, man.
Oh yeah. I love that relationship to the Panera Bread story because, again, not to rip on Panera Bread, but whether it's Starbucks, Panera Bread, any of these companies that are trying to, and I'm going to use a term from a prior co-host of mine, that Mind of the Athlete team. They have their own sports nutritionist. Her name is Erin. So shout out to Erin because I know she listens to the show and I bring her on every month. And one of her last episodes, I believe the exact title was the false healthy halo. And we literally dove into this false marketing around what's healthy. And people just blindly see the words all natural or organic and they think it's great. And I'm like, it could be organic oatmeal. It's still oats. Right. I don't care if there's no chemicals on it, but you're still eating empty energy. And your body's going to convert that into a sugar high. And I'm not going to get into the whole science behind it, but yeah, not going to help you. Okay. Right. Eat some eggs. Mm-hmm. But to your point there, that false healthy halo mindset, applies in a lot of other areas of life as well, and especially business. That's the whole point here, guys. Is like, this is what he and I have been talking about. It's just whether you're if you've not even worked with a coach before, start looking into coaching, whether you want to work with him or me or somebody else. Something else I've always told people is if you're currently working with a coach and that coach does not have a coach, get out. Because I've already heard you earlier in the episode, you've had mentors or you still have certain mentors and coaches. Some mentors and coaches, like even me, like I'm in transition from one coach. I'm looking for a new one because I'm always leveling up. So in the meantime, to buy that transition, I always make sure that I'm in some powerful mindset groups. So there's the power of groups and communities, stuff like that. Like I have my own group called The Fuel Tank. I use Facebook as a platform for that. I don't have a ton of people in it. It's just more of a private community. I'm sure you've started developing your own coaching circles and mentorship circles because then let's be real. Not everybody's ready yet.
Right.
And people are starting to dip their toes in the water. They're afraid to commit. They don't know what they want yet. So fine, at least start creating, and this is just a marketing lesson, but create a community where they're welcome. They see support, and they might be a member of that for like a year. And then all of a sudden, finally something clicks and they're like, wait a minute, I've been hearing it. I've been seeing it, and I'm tired of nothing working. So clearly I need the next step. I need his coaching. I need his mentorship. Let's take some time. Let me finally reach out to him. He's run a great community. Let's see what's going on. I don't know. Do you have one of those communities yet?
With you talking about with I'm Not You?
Yeah.
No, we're building something right now, but I have a community of the coaching, the clients that I have worked with, and I sort of set them up with accountability partners within, with other clients and things like that. But I agree 100%, man. Like, I don't trust people who don't read, who don't like have mentors, who don't, who aren't aggressively learning in that type of way. And to me, that's real humility. Humility is not a lack of confidence or a lowliness to me in that sense. It's like understanding that there's so much to learn and being willing to put aside whatever preconceived notions we may have. And we have a ton. I'm exposed to them all the time. I was just watching a documentary with my family just last night called Fed Up. I don't know if you saw that.
Seen it.
About
my girlfriend and I watched it a few months ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Powerful, man. And it challenges a ton of things that we thought were true and like that I thought were true and things. And so, but there's a great book I always recommend called Ego is the Enemy. And
read it.
Ryan Holiday. Yeah, great book.
we got some common ground here, man.
Yeah. And I remember I read that there was like anxiety that came up as I'm reading that. And that to me was a good sign. That's a good book that makes you think, that challenges a lot of your previously held beliefs. Mm-hmm. Warren Buffett always says like every year you should throw out at least one of your most cherished beliefs. Like just throw it out and try and being able, and he also says you should be able to argue the other side of yours. So if you're vegan, you should be able to argue why you should eat meat better than those people who eat meat. You should have that much knowledge as opposed to just blindly, hopping on to some. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. That's pretty powerful. I mean, again, to the listeners, guys, everything we're talking about here, we are not perfect. That's why I think I could at least my own closing comments, because just so if you're listening on this podcast show, man, you're going to get the final words here to be able to leave something motivational or inspirational, whatever your final closing statement's going to be. And then obviously I'll stop recording and then we can say a proper goodbye after we close out the show. But I'll close out before you here because I want you to have the final words. But like, this is what we're talking about, guys, is transparency, vulnerability, admitting that we all don't know everything. Okay. Your coach or your mentor isn't always going to know everything. This is what we're talking about, guys, is that work with people, surround yourself with people that are willing to take it to that level of vulnerability or opportunity to improve, but also work with these people because you're drawn to them in the right way as well. Make sure you're surrounding yourself with people of like-mindedness, because that's something that I've learned over the years too, is that I have to keep looking at my social circles. It's like, hey, am I letting the right energy in? Am I letting the right surroundings happen around me? Because that's what's going to help you flourish and grow, and maybe eventually become one of your communities. So, one of your coaching clients who end up getting, like you just said, accountability partners. Love that. Okay, these are all best practices that are out there, but is everybody doing that? I don't know. Mm-hmm. You're not going to know until you try them out. That's why I keep telling the listeners, guys, you got to check out I'mNotYou.com.
There you go.
So this has been powerful, man. I knew we were going to have a lot of energy today. And real quick, I made a note at the earlier part of the show. You had mentioned your bloodline is from Nigeria.
Yeah, my dad's from Nigeria. Yep.
So a prior co-host recently, have you ever heard of Teo Roxon?
No, but I have my nephew's name is Tayo, and my
Tayo
cousin as well. Yeah. So
he's in New York City, man, but he's a huge advocate for. He grew up a what do you call it? His father basically was a diplomat. So he joked around in the episode. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, I was one of those Diplo brats. He's like, but we were from Nigeria, so there's not much to be a brat about. he's like, it's not as good of a life as you think it is. He's like, it's not the same as being a USA diplomat. He's like, we were Nigeria, man. But he's definitely doing a lot of stuff right now as far as aligning people, helping people understand what's happening in Nigeria and other countries, and even here, things around race and everything else. So it's pretty powerful. I'm gonna send up an intro because he's also a podcaster. He's recently been on TEDx and done some public speaking with them and everything else. I think you guys will get a good vibe, and just would be kind of cool to connect that circle. back to where you have
definitely.
common bloodlines. I think that'd be powerful because
awesome.
He's big in the balance piece from a race alignment and respecting that in the professional space. You're coming in from the sports and fitness and that side of it. And I think you guys have a powerful relationship. And I truly love networking and connecting people. So that's something else I'm going to reach out and try and get you connected on if you're game.
Man. Absolutely. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So I just had to get that out there. But so back to my point for you, man, bringing this show to a close. What is a message that if everybody forgets everything else we talked about today, that you really want to make sure people know about you and the messaging you're trying to put out there, kind of like the big picture, man? Like there's been a lot of other good nuggets we've talked about on here today.
Right. Man, I would just give you one of the themes of my life, man, is to be a lion in the jungle. And so as opposed to being a lion in the zoo, the lion in the zoo has everything given to them. It's easy. They have shelter. When it snows, they get to go underneath the little patio. They get all their food given to them. It's safe. There's a lot of comfort. There's a lot of security. We can't opt for that because there's no happiness there. There's no fulfillment there. The lions in the jungle, they don't have any of that. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, a lot of doubt, a lot of no guarantees. However, those are the lions that are actually living their true purpose. And those are the ones that we see roar. So be a lion in the jungle. Be self-reliant. Find that, be willing to go through the fire, try things out, hunt for your own food, be an entrepreneur. And that doesn't mean you have to quit your job and start your own business. Be an entrepreneur in the company that you work for. Be a leader, be a go-getter, be a visionary, someone who sees the big picture, not a cog in a machine, not, an animal in the zoo. Don't do that. It's an illusion. Security is an illusion. It's not real. And the fear, the uncertainty, that's what life is all about. Because as an athlete, anyone who played a sport, if you went out and you were guaranteed to win, you know exactly how many points you were going to score, and you were guaranteed to win, that would be no fun. That's not how we're meant to live. It's that uncertainty. It's that variety. It's that adventure that we all crave. And sometimes, it catches us by surprise, but then that's why you have to be prepared as well. So if you're going to be in a lion in the jungle, that means you got to step your game up. You got to be strong. You got to be strong mentally. You got to be strong physically. You got to be strong spiritually. And so you have to prepare. But that is the lifestyle that I teach, that I preach through I'm Not You. That's the lifestyle that I've committed to living, that, I'm getting ready to homeschool my kids I have 5 children. I'm getting ready to homeschool them this fall. And it's tough. I'm not sure all the way how I'm going to do it, but I know that I want them to be lions in a jungle. I don't want my kids being lions in a zoo. Self-reliance is a value that is something that I value a lot. And that is what I would preach to all the people listening, is that lifestyle, it's not as scary as you think, and it's a lot more fun than you think.
Wow, man. That was powerful. All right, guys. Listen, we've said it before. We say it again. I mean, this is what we're all about. We're here to fuel your health, your business, your lifestyle. Just like he just said here, okay, be that lion in the jungle. And I'll pull a quote line right off of his website. It's all about how you think. And that's how we're going to close the show out today. So again, guys, it's all about how you think. Be that lion in the jungle. This is what it's all about. We're here to keep living the fired up epic life together. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Take it easy. All right. Podcast is clear.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I love good shows like this where I just come out high on life.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you get the same way on some of your stuff, man. When you start digging deep in, again, we talked about this, when you talk about stuff you're passionate about, it's so easy. It just, It flows. So
Right. That was fun, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let me know if I can help in any way, man. Let me know when it goes live. I'll definitely share it with all my peoples.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be I had to have somebody needed some help on moving an episode for launch. So actually, I'm actually going to try and move this up as early as Friday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because their website didn't launch on time. I'm trying to help them out from a marketing perspective because obviously it's new content. So I was like, hey, I'll move it. I'll move something around in here.
Right.
So I think I'm just going to bump them and slide you right in. So that way it makes it easy. Yeah. But I'll make sure, because I blast everything. LinkedIn, Facebook, Google+, Twitter, Instagram, everything gets shared. Mm-hmm. And then obviously you can either share it yourself or you can do resharing. Whatever makes your life easy.
Nice.
But it's all about that cross-pollination.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I hear you.
Cool. But this has been awesome, man. I appreciate it. A lot of good quotes were shared on this. You do a solid job referencing your studies. I will say, I want to give you respect for that, because not everybody can do that. And it shows you've been putting in the reps and you know what you're talking about.
No, I
So,
appreciate that. I've actually started like writing down all the things that I want to refer to and where I heard them from. That's helped a lot. And I just review it once a week. It's a pretty
I'm
cool
kind of the
practice.
same way. There's been so many books and so many volumes of stuff consumed that, and I see it behind you as well. It's like, wow, man, there's so much stuff. We got to see what the cream is that's rising to the top.
Exactly.
And that's the stuff that we know is that high value. There's so many other things we could be referencing, but clearly there's certain stuff that really stands out to us. And I love that as a best practice. I think I need to go through that because I'm constantly referencing stuff all over the place, but I know there's those powerful ones that really ring true all the time.
Right. And then you just use them over and over. Like I use this, some just over and over because they resonate with me so much.
Yeah. This is awesome. Very cool, man. Well, I'll make sure everything is hyperlinked, all your shows, all the website, all your social media, all that stuff gets put into the blog post because that's what keeps Google happy and creates all that wonderful, happy cross-pollination back and forth between our sites and the Google world. So
nice.
Thanks again for coming on. This is awesome. I hope this helps grow your online brand and everything you're trying to do. So, and kudos for switching your kids to homeschool times 5.
Yeah.
All you. Man, we'll have to. You know what? We're gonna have to follow up.
Yeah.
You're always gonna be welcome back on the show. I tell that to all of my powerful co-hosts, and especially if there's something new happening. But if you feel like in the next couple of months or something like that, there's something big happening, and you want to get it out there, authoring a new book, or you want to just vent about what it's like having to homeschool 5 kids, we could do that. There's other people going through the same stuff, I'm sure.
Right. Absolutely, man. That would be awesome, dude. I appreciate it, man.
All right. Well, this was great. I'll get this stuff up online and I'll loop you back in when everything goes live.
All right. No doubt, man. Have a great rest of the day. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take it easy.
All right. Peace.